Hello, good evening. It's been some time since I last recorded my video. Well, a lot has happened. As I told you before, my TV set had broken for some reason and I had to buy another one. So it was a mess. I had to buy a new bed, a new mattress, and all this happened all together with the coming of a new game that I wanted to play so much, which was The Last of Us 2. I'm still playing it. For your account, the last weekend I spent the whole weekend playing video games. Can you do that? Yeah. It's been a while and I haven't given up recording videos, English videos yet. I'm still doing it, but not as frequent as I'd like to be. Perhaps I will return with the videos with the frequency that I had established before, which was twice or 3 times a day, but I guess it's impossible as I'm becoming tired. I work all day, you know. It's not a job here, it's not a job, it's just a hobby. Okay, so let's get going. The last video we covered the first part of the passive voice, and now we had another video about the passive voice. Okay, so let's get started. Yes, a lot has happened lately. Well, let me give some examples in the active voice, and then we will turn the sentence into the passive voice, okay? So let's see. For example, let me see, something can be heard from afar. Okay, so you can hear something can be heard from afar. You don't know what it is, but it can be heard. So you see, I can use the passive voice with the verb can, right? Something can be heard. Why is this a passive voice? Because I have the verb to be, and the verb can. The sentence is in the present because the verb can, which expresses possibility here, is in the present, okay? But it could be otherwise. It could be another example. So something can be heard from afar, or you can see, you can say, I can hear something from afar. In this example, the passive voice, we don't know who did the action, right? Something is the subject of the sentence, but as we have already seen, it's not the doer of the action. The doer of the action is omitted from this sentence. And when I turn into the active voice, it's necessary to give a subject, a doer of the action. So I here is the doer of the action, okay? She doesn't want to be bothered. She doesn't want to be bothered. No, this is not the passive voice. She wants to be left alone. This is a passive voice. Why is this a passive voice? Because I have the verb to be and the past participle. Just remember, the verb leave, the simple past is left, and the past participle is left as well. It's the same, okay? Left, left. So, as I told you before, you can use the active voice. You use the main verb. It can be any verb, okay? It can be here, it can be live, okay? It's the main verb of the sentence. You can use the active sentence. This is not an active sentence. This is the passive sentence. And for example, I clean the room. This is a simpler example. I clean the room. Or I can say the room is cleaned. I have the verb to be and the verb in the past participle. So the pattern is established here. It's very easy to recognize, okay? Okay, so we have the infinitive form in which we use in the passive voice the verb to be in the infinitive form plus a verb in the past participle. So that's the pattern you have to check here. In general, this is not the first example I gave here. I clean the room is cleaned. It's not this. No, it's not this because I use the verb to be in the present plus a verb in the past participle. But when I use a verb in the infinitive sentence, so you see, some noise can be heard. I use the verb can. The verb to be in the infinitive tense, so this is the infinitive tense. The infinitive tense mainly is the verb to be without the to, okay? You drop the to, you put be heard, can be heard. So this is an example of the passive voice. This fact can't be explained. This is also a passive voice. I use the verb can in the negative form, the verb to be, and the verb in the past participle. So what's the pattern? I have the verb to be in the infinitive plus a verb in the past participle. Okay, so I just want to give you different examples of passive voice. For example, she wants to be left alone. I have the verb to be in the infinitive form plus a verb in the past participle. The same applies here. Something can be heard from afar. So can be in the infinitive form and here in the past participle. Okay, so this is the infinitive sentence. It's very easy, very straightforward. And now we will see another example, which is the perfect infinitive form. What is the perfect infinitive? He should have called me. He should have called me. Is this passive or active voice? Active voice. Okay. I should have been called. This is the passive voice. So pay attention. This isn't as obvious as it seems when you have, for example, he should have called me. So what's the pattern? I have the verb have, plus I have a verb in the past participle, okay? So this is the active voice. So if the active voice is in the present perfect, or present infinitive, as I told you here, the passive voice will be used like this. I should have been called. I use the verb have, right? I use the verb been, and I use the main verb followed by ed because it's a regular verb. I will give you another example. If he hadn't reacted to the robbery, if he hadn't reacted to the robbery, he wouldn't have been killed. Okay, so I had a friend, for example, who was a victim from a robbery, right? Very bad situation to be, and the person who committed this crime, he was holding him as a hostage, right? And all of a sudden, my friend reacted. He reacted to the robbery, okay? So he was killed in this event. But if he hadn't reacted to the robbery, he wouldn't have been killed. This is a passive voice. This part of the sentence only. He wouldn't have been killed because he was he a doer, or was he the receiver of the action? He was the receiver because he was killed. He didn't kill himself, okay? Epstein didn't kill himself, okay? So he wouldn't have been killed. This is the passive voice. Recognize the pattern. I have plus been plus a verb in the past participle. The same pattern, okay? So the present infinitive has two patterns. In the active voice, I have plus a verb in the past participle, okay? This is the active voice. It's like the present perfect, but not quite, because it's the present infinitive form. Why is it the present infinitive? Because I use another verb, a model verb, to follow this structure. And when I use, for example, should, it's not necessary to use to. It's wrong, actually. Should come. It's not should to come, okay? So should come is in infinitive form. Should followed by infinitive form. Bare infinitive. We call it bare infinitive. I remembered from a book I had studied a long time ago. It's a bare infinitive because you drop the to, okay? The to you drop from the sentence. My delivery has been sent. My delivery may have sent, have. I will restart. Sorry. My delivery may have been sent last week. I'm expecting a delivery, right? I bought a product from the internet in e-commerce, e-business, right? And I tracked, the tracking system of the delivery company says that my delivery was already delivered, but it's not here yet. So I'm guessing that my delivery may have been sent last week, and maybe it will be here by next week, perhaps. So may have been sent. May have been sent is a bare infinitive, right? May have, because the verb may doesn't require the preposition to after. May, have. It's like a modal verb. So you have the verb have, the verb been, and the verb in the past participle. So it's a model of a passive voice that you have to understand. Okay? So when you say, just to summarize some of the situations, when you say, for example, I will help you. I will help you. You will be helped. This is passive voice, right? You will receive some help from me. You will be helped by me. It's omitted. So when you have this structure, will help, will be helped. When you have, for example, he should have bought it. He should have bought it, but he didn't buy. So it should have been bought. So pay attention, always, always. The passive voice always have the verb to be. And the verb tense, so it's a way to memorize, okay? I will teach you a hint. The verb tense that you have in the active voice will be the same applied to the passive voice, but it has a catch, right? It's not just this verb tense, which is the present perfect. You have to use the present perfect, and you have to put the verb being. The verb to be has to be in the passive voice. So he should have bought it. It should have been bought. The active voice here, I will help you. Will is the simple future. Will help you. So the passive voice, I use the verb will, be, the same verb, will be helped. Why do I use the verb to be? Because the verb to be is observed, is required in all passive voice situations. Okay? So it's like this, just to summarize. Should have in the active, should have in the passive. But you have to add the verb to be. Should have been the past participle, because it's the present infinitive form. Here, he wouldn't have been killed. He has been killed. He had been killed, or he was killed by this accident. He wouldn't have been killed. It's the bare infinitive. It has to be followed by the verb to be. So some exercises that you may have to solve in English requires you to change from the active to the passive voice and vice versa. So you have to be able to recognize the patterns, and the hint that I give you, that I will explore in the next video, the hint I give you is that the passive voice always have the verb tense of the active voice. It starts with the verb tense that is used in the active voice. If it's in the future, will, it will have will in the passive voice. But it has to be followed by the verb to be. always. So you have to pay attention to the situations that require the verb to be. The passive voice always have the verb to be. The verb tense of the verb to be will be the same verb tense of the active voice. If I use here the present perfect, you know that the present perfect requires the verb in the past participle, right? The past participle, when I turn into the passive voice, what is the verb? The past participle of the verb to be. To be, was, were, been. So been is the past participle of the verb to be. Okay, it was a long video, but I had to explain all these examples. The next video I will remind you of this lesson, but seeing other examples so that you can recognize this pattern here, that the passive voice requires the verb to be in the same verb tense of the active voice. Okay, so that's it, people. Good evening, good night. I'm saying good night because I'm going to bed.